Good evening for coming to this evening, and thank you so much, Maria, for accepting our invitation. My name is Mirjana Tomic, and I'm just looking for the front page. Yes. My name is Mirjana Tomic, and I curate and moderate discussions on politics and media in Europe for two Vienna-based organizations, Presseclub Concordia and Forum Journalismus und Medien. Desi has already introduced our guest this evening, Maria Kalesnikava, who embodies the intersection of music and politics. All the music has played a central role in your life. Tonight we shall talk about politics. Welcome to Presseclub Concordia, and just one sentence about the format. We shall conduct a 30-minute conversation, and it will be followed by 30 minutes of Q&A session. I will do one small exception. Before starting a brief introduction on your story, I want to say a few sentences about your country, because Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, is very well known, but what we know about the country is rather limited. You probably agree. I will only say that it has 9 million residents, and in comparison to other countries from the former Soviet Union, there have been less radical political and economic transformations. It is a country with big industries, and most of it state-owned. And please correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't have like the big oligarchs like Russia has and Ukraine has. Lukashenko has kept a lot of ties to Russia, political and military and economic, although I understand that President Putin doesn't really like him personally, but they need each other. And last, and probably the most important, according to several political analysts from Belarus that I've spoken to, in comparison to Russia, there is more repression in Belarus, in terms of numbers, and in terms of the type of repression there is, and it is a lot more systematic. In Russia, what I have heard is a bit more chaotic, so you can somehow escape. In Belarus, there is no escape. And just allow me now to say a little bit your story, and then, of course, the floor is yours. Maria Kalesnikava is a Belarusian professional flautist and political activist. She studied flute in Minsk and moved to Germany in 2007, where she earned master's degrees in early music and contemporary music. In 2019, she returned to Belarus, and then she started her political career, and you will tell us about this transition. She participated in the campaign of Viktar Babaryka, who tried to challenge at the presidential elections of 2020 Alexander Lukashenko, but he was refused registration and detained. And you, Maria, joined forces with other two women, Sviatlana, Tsikhanouskaya and Veranika, Tsapkala, to form a coalition to stand against Lukashenko. I will also ask you later, what did you hope to achieve then? Lukashenko declared victory with 80% of the vote, and the opposition rejected these results, and Western governments also refused to accept those results. There were big demonstrations after that. There were huge protests and even bigger repression. I understand that by May 21, there were 37,000 people who had been detained in connection with the protests. That is within 1 year. Right now, there are about 830 political prisoners. In September 20, I'm coming to the end, Maria was abducted by unidentified security officers and forcibly taken to Belarusian-Ukrainian border, where she realized she was expelled from the country. She famously tore her passport and crossed back to Belarus, and then we all learned about you, these images of you saying, no, I'm not leaving the country. You will explain, as you did on many occasions, that it was a rational rather than emotional decision. The following day, her lawyer, Maxim Znak, was also detained. And when you read Maria's political journey, one notices that many of her lawyers were themselves either imprisoned or disbarred. So you defend her and then you end up in jail. And then another lawyer comes and, if I understood, also ends up in jail. Maria was sentenced to 11 years in a penal colony, and she spent more than 2.5 years in isolation, including 20 months of solitary confinement. During that time, and you will tell us about it, she was permitted to read books from the prison library, which was a bit of a surprise for me. I really didn't know that in Belarus, the prisoners were allowed to read. Or probably I don't have the experience of prison, so I didn't know they were allowed to read. Her release followed, her release in December 2025, followed the agreement with between the United States and the government in Minsk, under which some sanctions against the Belarusian government were eased in exchange for political prisoners. Maria has received numerous international awards in recognition of her work, starting with the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought, Václav Havel Human Rights Prize, and International Charlemagne Prize of Aachen. She now lives in Germany, and you will say if you are more of a political activist or a musician. And now I start from the future, and then we go to the past. On the 26th of July, you will deliver the opening address at the Salzburg Festival. Will you speak primarily about art or about politics? What will be your central message?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for such a great introduction of Belarus and of me. When we are speaking now about Salzburg speech, of course it's still a secret. I cannot say about what would I like to speak, but I can.
Would you like?
Yes, but I can tell you what I spoke already. For example, in a Munich Sicherheitskonferenz or in
Munich Security Conference.
Yes, I speak also about the culture and music and art as a weapon. Everybody speaks that we have to make more militarization, more weapon and everything. And I said, I ask what we are fighting for, what have we to protect? And my message is that first of all, we have to protect our European values, our European culture. And of course, for me, like an artist, it's very important to be also an ambassador of art and culture and our values. And it's already that I speak also about of all these international events.
Thank you so much. Well, I wish I'll read your speech. So now let's go back to 2020. How did your transition from professional musician to political activist unfold? Before the election, as protests spread around, what were you hoping for then? When you participated in the elections, what did you hope? That Lukashenko would be defeated, that the system would change? What were your hopes then?
You have already two questions. The first, yes. I will answer for two, but I start with the first one. Of course, transition, you named it transition, but for me it's very natural situation because of course I didn't woke up one morning and decide music or art is too easy for me, let's start with politics or with fighting with dictatorships. Of course not. For us, for musicians, artists and people from culture, freedom and way of thinking, it's a freedom, it's our DNA. And when we see some problems in society, we cannot take silence. And it's our very natural reaction to speak about it. to be loud and not to keep silence. And if you know history, yes, every dictators, they started to fighting with culture people, with teacher, with intelligence, with an artist. We can say about Hitler, Stalin, Lukashenko, Putin. We are artists and musicians, theater, literature people. We are the first. With them, they starting to fight with. And it's our DNA, and I cannot explain it better. And even now, it was very interesting. Two composers we have, we just listen. Beethoven. He never nicked his head for the authorities. And Rachmaninoff have to go abroad and live all his life, not in Russia, after the revolution. And he was named by the government in Russia, in Soviet Union, like an enemy till the end of his life. It's very interesting, but Rachmaninoff perhaps made more for Russian culture as any other musician and composer. It's very interesting paradox. And it's also, it shows us how music and culture can make borders, bridges, how it united and connected people from all over the world, from all over the times. And it's also, you know, it's our way of understanding the life and the world we are living.
Well, one thing that comes out in all of your interviews is how positive you are, and that is very beautiful. In this room, we don't often have positive forecasts, so this is very beautiful. Thank you for that. When you were detained and you spent months and months in solitary confinement, what kept you going? Was it politics? Was it love? Was it music? Was it the books? What type of books did you read? I must say that books really caught my attention. I didn't expect that you would even have librarians come to your cell.
Yes, it's a very also huge question. First of all, I felt me never in prison. My border was, of course, in these four walls, but inside me, I was every time free, because my world is inside me, but not outside, or only when it's not dangerous for me. And many things helps to survive in such a very difficult conditions. And it's true that in Belarus conditions is more worse than in Russia. And also my solitary, I was complete isolated and complete alone in a cell insgesamt 2.5 years. It means that 2.5 years in two slots, I was alone 24 hours. And 3 years, I was in incommunicado regime. It means that I have no possibility to receive letters or to have a call with my family or to know something about my family, my sister, my father, my friends. I've received information from a state radio and everybody who lives or who know how to live in USSR. They have this possibility to translate everything you hear from the propaganda medias. It's also very interesting experience, but of course, nobody, please not try to, to have it. And of course, that's, I mentioned already that I'm a person of culture and art, and it's make me full of my life, of everything I've ever played as a flautist, of musician, I've heard, and I read, and also a library in it's a tradition from Soviet times that that the prisoners have to read 5 books per week, and it's not about me. It's a rule.
Excuse me,
It's
what,
what's not
can you mention a few titles that you were allowed to read?
Excuse me?
A few titles.
Um,
or authors.
Yes, I can say I have, for example, Montaigne. It's what for me, it was opening for me, and I read it a few times, and it was a sort of dialogue with a friend or discussion in my head with a friend. Montaigne is a very good friend of me. Shakespeare, of course, also. And what's very interesting, for example, Goethe, I've read 2 times in 2 different translations, and it was 2 different pieces, and now I'm start to read it in original to know what Goethe wrote. Also, all classics and some, for me, was very important to read also philosophers of 20th century, also Frankl and Hannah Arendt, but it was very little. And
you mean Hannah Arendt was on the list of books?
She was not on the list, but except from her works were in other books. And for me, it was also very interesting and very useful. Yes, but some genres I will never read them in freedom. For example, like Krimis, Scandinavia's Krimis, or George Martin, The Game of Thrones. It's very political, strategical book, and yes, it was a rather interesting opening for me also.
Thank you. You said, I think that everyone who has been in prison, who knows what even one day in prison is like, perceives everything a little differently. I would like to mention 2 topics. How, from what I understand, your views have changed before and after. Well, the first one has to do with talking with Lukashenko and the dialogue with Lukashenko. In October 2020, 1 month after your arrest, your lawyer, Alexander Pilchenko, revealed that Lukashenko had requested a meeting with you to discuss constitutional reform. You refused out of solidarity with other prisoners. 6 years later, you advocate dialogue with Lukashenko. Could you explain this shift? What has changed in your thinking, and how has Belarus changed in your absence?
Yes, it's a little bit manipulation, but it's not okay for media, understand? No, I mean know about you, about how it's published already. The information. For example,
I read it in some Belarusian source.
Yeah, I know. That's why I say that it's a very often that some sort of manipulation in information are also here. And when I'm in a prison, I cannot say the truth or how I did understand it. For example, it was not a normal invitation for one dialogue. No, it was, I'm sitting in a prison, and at night some guys ask for me to speak, and it looks like a little bit dangerous when you're sitting in a Belarusian prison and at night somebody would like to speak with you. And they don't set their names or, some sort of kinds of, but they put a very manipulative sort of variation of speech to speaking with me. And of course, my reaction is not allowed to be manipulated. And I refused of this invitation because I was not sure that it will bring something when it started some.
And who were these people who suggested?
I can only perhaps suppose it was somebody from KGB, but they don't say me. And it's very interesting situation for one woman who at night in a prison speak to some men. you know, I have a right to be to say sorry, but I don't play in your games. Yes, and the first and the second. Now I'm advocating not for dialogue, but I'm try to advocate and to say the very important thing about Belarusians and Belarus. And of course, I'm sitting here right now because of negotiations, because somebody started in one moment to change the politic. Yeah, and we can name it Trump and his administration, and then make a deal with Lukashenko, and it works. In last year, fast 500 people are released because of this sort of negotiations. And for me, it's very important thing also to say, in a prison, prison don't make me bitter or don't make me hard, but the time when you are so much time alone help you to look not through the camera, you know, in only one point, but to be a little bit more wide and opening and to understand and to see much more and a little bit more in perspective in the future also. Because still now in Belarus, you mentioned 840 people.
According to Vyasna.
Yeah, yes, it can be a little bit more because we have no all information. But 500 people is already free. It means that their families is also free. And for me, and I think it's also what I learned in Europe, in Germany, the human life, it's priority. It's not a question of, you know, I cannot say that, so I can only say that we have to save every human life, and we have this possibility to do. And I'm also an example how it works. It was one time where I was sure that I will be not leave because of health problems, and I was very many days and months alone, and I was also in prison with very difficult conditions and hard conditions. And I understand what it means to live or to stay in a prison one day. And there are 800 people who are every day their dream to be free. They want to see their families, to meet their kids, to meet their parents. And for me, it's not just words.
What would you like the European Union to do? What would you like the European Union to offer Lukashenko? What do you think that Lukashenko would be willing to offer in return?
When I'm speaking about the negotiations or some sort of communication with Belarusian authorities, I don't mean recognition or acceptance, yes, or some normalization in this way. I mean that EU can also use diplomacy in this very pragmatical and a hard way, also to with concrete results, and it's very important to say with measurable results. But because now we know that there is only language of sanctions, and sanctions are still in Belarus, and somehow not all of them. I would like to say in another way, some of them are also very sensitive and our bad conditions for the people who are in Belarus. And it's a very strange situation that we are Belarusians in 2020. were fighting for new and democratic Belarus, for European values, and we choose this new way. And Lukashenko was supported by Putin, and he started repressions, and it was also many people in prison and many in exile. And now, after 5 years, Belarusians are a little, I can say, they cut off from Europe. And when I'm saying about stopping in isolation, it's about the possibilities for Belarusians who can get an education as before, who can get a visum, who can travel, because it's very important to get connected to Belarusians with EU also. But first of all, of course, there are no way to start negotiations, but to not to speaking about of releasing of all political prisoners, to stopping repressions, and also to perhaps to stop the law, because they, in the last 5 years, they changed about 60 laws that allowed the state to be repressive.
But what can, in practical terms, what could European countries or the EU do to achieve what you have just said?
First of all, it have to be one, I think, this decision or political will to start to make one strategy. Now the problem is that there is no strategy. In speaking of Belarus, there are only sanctions and no also control of these sanctions. We don't know how it works also, yeah? And I think that it's like I said before, political will helps also to start negotiations with very measurable result. And I'm also sitting here. This is one measurable.
You're a measurable result.
Yes, result. But nobody believed for half a year that I will be free. But it's sort of very difficult work of diplomacy. And we see that it works.
You have also mentioned that the current sanctions are affecting the civil society because young people and not so young people cannot travel to Europe, they cannot study in Europe, and they go to Russia. Could you explain what would be those measures to eliminate visas, to invite Belarusians to participate in international educational programs? Do you have any concrete things in mind, or it's more in general that you are talking about?
What I'm talking about, I talk also about the situation before 2020. It's very interesting because 2020 wasn't impossible because of not to having the 5 years before. And it was the most free years in modern Belarusian history. After the first presidential election in 94, 94, sorry, yes, 94. It was 5 years of opening borders, and it was a very deep connection. Not only students can get the education, and also the people can travel. And they made it. And Belarus was number one who became visas from EU in these years. And now they all also became visas, but it's very difficult. The amount is less, and also the visas are not multiplied. They're not always, but often.
They're not multiple,
yes.
one entry
yes,
visas.
Yes. And it's also, you have to wait many months until you get it.
2 more topics, and I will open the floor for the audience. One thing is being a dissident or a political activist in the country and abroad. I understand, I'm not trying to manipulate, but I think that's what you said in Financial Times, that when you tore the passport, it was a decision of yours. You wanted to stay in Belarus and be with the people. But now, 5 years later, you are abroad. I'm going to quote a Russian dissident who was also released from prison and was in this very same room, Ilya Yashin, who said here about a year and a half ago, I know how to be a politician in Russia and I knew how to be in prison, but let's see how one can be a politician abroad. So where can you be more effective? How will your work change now that you're abroad? And to what extent is the Belarusian democratic opposition united as to how to counter or fight or resist Lukashenko?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. And let me explain also my position and my understanding of what happened in 2020, 7th September. It was my decision. It was not impulsive, but for me it was very clear from every beginning, from the first day I participated in elections campaign, that I will be stay no matter what till end. And also the elections was in 9th of August. And then it was already fast 1 month. Then I was in Belarus, and I was walking with people through the streets, and I was also talking to people, to families whose families was in prison, and I saw also how many pain and how dangerous was the situation in that month. And it was my decision that I stay with my people, with Belarusians till end. And also in a good time, we were together at the streets, we were having 1 million, and we were very happy and very free and very solidar to each other. And then when started the dark times, I named it dark times, I will also stay with them and to share it shoulder to shoulder. And in this 6-year situation is also changed. And of course, I can perform something to stay in Belarus also now. But I saw that the process of releasing political prisoners already started, and I can be a point who will end it because of my reactions. And for me, it was very, very important. I understand then I can save not everybody, but perhaps some people will be also released with me or after me, you know. And it was also my sort of dilemma. But yes, I accept that I cannot save everybody. But
you think you can be more effective abroad?
No. I think, I'm sure that I can be also effective and say about the pain of Belarusians who still live in Belarus, and also to support them and to support families, and to I can be a voice of the people who cannot speak, who can not say you how difficult the life in a prison is.
Thank you. And about the opposition, how united or disunited it is. The opposition abroad, that is most of it, I think.
I'm sure that we have the one and main goal. It's a long-term goal. We would like to see Belarus free and democratic in future. And of course, we need many efforts of many people from different, how to say it, places to go to this goal. And we can have also in opposition a little bit different point of views of some themes, but I think if we have the one goal, we will go together, perhaps parallel, perhaps not, but not in the different
Not together,
directions.
but parallelly.
But yeah, in one direction.
One direction.
Yes.
And my last question, the time is running. I'm interested in one thing. You know, during the protests in Belarus in 2020, there was such a visibility of women. And all of a sudden, Western feminists thought that Belarus was this incredible country where women have all the rights. Is it really like that? Is were women at the forefront by accident? Because I don't know of any Eastern European country where women have all the rights. Maybe Belarus was different, or was it a question of circumstances?
You know, all dictators are, or dictatorships are very patriarchal. Yes, but we don't agree with it. And we show how it can work when three women have the one goal. We just needed 15 minutes to speak to each other, not to be friends before. We didn't see us before. We have 15 minutes, and we decide.
You mean men would need more time?
I think more days or more weeks or more years. But we need just 15 minutes to decide what points are for us important, and if we are ready to go together, and we are ready to go together, we're ready to go together. And of course, all dictatorships underestimate women. But it's also a big mistake. But also from another point of view, of course, the dictators punished us also very hard.
Well, I cannot say thank you. I mean, thank you for a reply, that you replied, not the content. I open the floor for questions. Please, and please introduce yourself. Here is the microphone.
Good evening, Christian Ronchamp from Geneva, Dialogos. Thank you so much for being here. I have two little questions. First, music in prison. You have talked about books in prison. Have you been authorized to play flute in prison? Or were you connected to music in a certain way in prison? That's the first question. And the second question is more global. Do you think that the fate of Belarus is connected to the fate of Ukraine? So is the war and the next year's, really connected to your country, Belarus? Do you think that the consequences of a defeat of Putin in Ukraine could have large consequences in Belarus?
May I take one more question, and then, is that okay? Georg, please, and then in the back. No, well, first, doesn't matter now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your most fascinating presentation. I have a question which actually is a little similar. It is generally said that Russian influence keeps on rising in Belarus, and what may happen after Lukashenko is not anymore. Some president who says we want to give up our independence and become part of Russia. Is that possible? And in comparison to Ukraine, we remember the essay of Putin in 2021, it was in July 2021, about when he said that actually Ukraine doesn't exist and Ukrainians are Russians, actually in preparation of the aggression then in the year 22. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's say a third one, and then there is one in the back. Because we have 20 minutes, that's why. Go ahead.
Wolfgang Müller, University of Vienna. Thank you very much for your presentation, and also it's a great honor to have you here in Vienna. My question pertains to the ambivalence and the relationship of music and politics as well. It fills me with joy and anticipation that you will be expected to speak at the Salzburg Festival. So would you like to comment perhaps on another thing related to the Salzburg Festival, that perhaps the face of Vladimir Putin's regime on the musical stage, or one of those artists and conductors who are most closely related to Vladimir Putin's Russia, Theodor Korentzis, is going to conduct in Salzburg as well. Perhaps you would like to comment on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Let's start with, we named now Belarus, like Belarus, not Belarusia, only to know Belarus. Yes, because Belarusia, it's a Soviet Union time pronunciation. And it's just to know. Of course, I was not allowed to play music in a prison. I was not allowed to receive briefs from my family. Of course, I don't have a flute or piano to play. But music was every day with me in my head, and every musician can say how it is. We have a music in our head. And it's also that saved my life, I would like to say, because it's my world, and it was like a shield. Nobody can go through it, yes, from my art inside me. Then the second and third question, I think they are a little bit in one direction. First of all, of course, when Europe cut off connections and with Belarus and Belarusians, they automatically go to Russia. It's perhaps not from one day, but it's still 5 years of closed borders and closed connections, and it's naturally goes in another direction. You cannot stop it. And Putin, for example, he make hiring from students from Belarus. They became extra quotas to study in Russian universities. And for us, Belarusians, it's very dangerous that younger generation, now they don't know what 2020 was. In 5 years, they lose understanding what Europe is, what democratic values is, what freedom is. It's very dangerous when we are looking from this point of view. And about the security, and it's also very important to say, it's dangerous. Russia in Belarus, Putin have already his soldiers and his weapon in Belarus, and it's dangerous for Ukraine, for Belarusians, of course, for Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland, like neighbors, and of course for whole Europe. And when I'm speaking about negotiations and about political will, I'm speaking also about the diplomacy like an instrument and mechanism to influence on this situation. Because when comes the time of a ceasefire and of peace negotiations in Ukraine, they will be speaking about security guarantees for Ukraine. And Belarus will be there in one first, second, or third right, because it's a north border of Ukraine, and without safety Belarus and guarantees for Ukraine, that there are no weapons of Putin, no soldiers of Putin on this border and in Belarus, it will be not secure for Ukraine and for Europe as well. And it's time to turn and a little bit point of view, or a little bit, to see in this problem not only like a regional problem or the problem of Belarus, but it will be also a problem of this region and for Europe as well.
In other words, that Belarus should be present in one way or another at the negotiations.
Of course, of course, we are, as Belarusians, needed for our sovereignty. I'm not speaking now about Lukashenko personal. I'm speaking about the future of my country and about Belarusians, because we're now, it's a very dangerous situation. It's already 5 years of this dictatorship, awful things in Belarus, and it's very dangerous. The Belarusians are now closed with Lukashenko face to face and with Putin face to face, and of course we need that our voice have to be heard, and we need also support of you in this case.
And the question about the Russian artists, Kurentsis, Georgiev, I assume.
Georgi, he's not here.
No.
No. Okay.
Not yet.
It's very interesting to have this question. You know, if there Austrian Regierung, government decided, or Salzburg Festspiele decided to invite people, I'm not. I don't think that I would like to comment it, because they invited me also, and for me it's a big honor. I understand how important is it to be on this scene and to have a speech. For example, of course, I learned much about the history of Salzburg Festival and how it's important. And for example, Václav Havel were also here, and for me it's more important to speak or to know about it more as a comment of some another decisions, you know.
Okay. In the back, I see a question.
Well, thank you very much for this very moving intervention. I'm Arundhati Vermani. I'm a guest fellow at the Institute for Wissenschaft von Menschen in Vienna. And you're both a musician, and now you are, you're into political. You're a political voice and an activist. And so, do you think this shift is you moved from one to the other, or as a musician, as a flutist, you're still continuing to speak this political opinion of yourself? Because I'm thinking of Daniel Barenbaum, and at one point he came to India. I'm from India. And he went with a troupe to play in this very conflictual region of Kashmir. And he said that, he was acting through music as a musician. So I'm just wondering if you are doing both, or you've shifted from one to the other, and how does that kind of connect, Thank you.
For musician, it's very difficult to stay more than 5 years without instrument. And I have time to I don't know how to speak, to start also in music. But I already made it in April in Berlin and in Stuttgart as well.
You had concerts?
Yes, I have a performance and concerts, and now I still in this rebuilding, I would like to say, or restoring time, of course, physically. Also, 5 years in very hard conditions was not, it bring some damage for body also. But now I cannot be divided from music or politics, because it's a very natural, how to say, I don't know, it's very natural for me to be both of them and not to divide it in my head.
Thank you. Any more questions? Please.
Are you dreaming of Belarus being part of the EU?
I think now in short and middle term perspective, it's not about dreaming, it's about to stay sovereign and independent. And in this case, I speak because of Russia, of course. And perhaps for us, it's good to be neutral now. Because when we say that we would like to go from Russia and to run from him, we saw how he made it with Ukraine. And in this case, I think for us it's very important to be pragmatically and to understand what is for us dangerous, and we have to save Belarus independent and sovereign.
Excuse me, could you explain what you mean by neutral?
For me, it's very, easy, but perhaps Schweiz is neutral.
Yes, but it is
perhaps
not on
it's
the Russian border.
Perhaps it's a very good example.
Yes, but it's not on the Russian border.
Well, not to be part of Russia. For me, it's enough, but also from another point of view, to stay neutral and not to go in. It's very difficult to explain it, but it means to stay independent and sovereign as we would like to stay.
Any other questions? Because I do have. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Sarah Waring. I work for Eurozine. It's a network of cultural journals in Europe. And my question is, we would be very keen to have exchange with Belarusian journals, but it's incredibly difficult to make that connection. We think that it's more possible to work with the diaspora. That's a possibility, but and so it's a very direct question from my own perspective. Is there any way that you think we could find ways through so that we can see that we can gain access to what's still happening perhaps underground in the cultural scene?
Can you a little bit explain?
Yeah,
so question. I don't.
We're blocked from gaining access to writing that's coming from Belarus, and I'm sure that in Belarus itself that much material is no longer, you can't publish anymore. You have to be very careful what you say and what you publish. So
What is the question?
So the question is,
how to have access to the cultural scene and publications in Belarus, because Sarah represents an organization that publishes a lot of articles from different cultural magazines throughout Europe, and there is no access to Belarus.
Why?
It's not, oh yeah, this is working. I believe it's just become incredibly difficult to gain contact.
With Belarusians who live in Belarus? Or with Belarusians who are in exile?
No, not those in exile, those who are still in Belarus.
Who live in Belarus.
Yeah. Yes, it can be also very dangerous for them. And now I try also to find a possibility to support the people who stay in Belarus, also musicians and composers and other cultural scene people. And it's the festival is very dangerous, and sometimes they don't put their names also in for example, when we are speaking about the concert, they don't put their names in a concert in Europe, or don't make it visible. It can be dangerous, and it's also very, for me, it's very very strong indicator of a freedom. There are no freedom, and also for when it's no freedom for Bach and music, and
what do you mean there is no freedom for Bach?
The people who live in Belarus,
Are not
They are
allowed to
not
play Bach?
allowed. They are allowed to play Bach, but the people, the musicians who supported me personally, or also 2020 protests, now they have no work. They have Berufsverbot.
They are not allowed to work.
Yes, and for musicians, you know, it's a big problem because they are not allowed to teach officially. They are not allowed to have a concert officially, and of course, we are looking.
So anyone who had anything to do with you has problems, whether it is lawyers, musicians.
Everybody, yes. And when we spoke about lawyers, I have 7 lawyers. Not every of them were in a prison.
But some of them are not allowed to work.
In Belarus, nobody.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they are all abroad.
I understand. Well, I have 2 short questions. Oh, Desi?
Maybe just one very simple question, and it is, what is the scenario or scenarios that you can see plausible of eventual democratization of your country? And when, how do you see it in time? Like, how could this happen? Where can this start from?
Of course, we all wish, everybody wish it will be tomorrow. Yes, but we are realists. We understand that it's impossible to go sleep in a dictatorship and to awake in a freedom and democracy. It's a long process, and you in Europe know it's already better than me. And it's took efforts of many peoples, institutions, and everything, yes. And I'm sure there's a day come. And of course, it's not tomorrow, but I know, I'm sure that when everybody will make step by steps in this direction, we will go through dictatorship, and somehow it will be changing. It's long process, but somebody have to start.
Excuse me, do you think Lukashenko is grooming her son to be his successor? Preparing his son to be his successor?
It's a very interesting question. I think,
yes,
but I will answer. Okay.
Okay.
You know, it's there is one citate: "You can kill all of us, but you cannot kill your successor." Yeah, you know this citate. I don't remember from where is it, but it's very interesting. Of course, they are trying to be ready for transition in somehow, because there are no dictators who live thousands of years. And what interesting is, Russia is already ready for transition in Belarus. And EU has no strategy for this. And it's also their point, because what I'm speaking about, yeah, to have a clear and very measurable strategy for future in Belarus in context of European security also, and in context of transition. In 2020, people were ready for changing. Lukashenko not. Putin supported him, and because Putin had strategy in 2020 for Belarus, and it works. We saw it, yes. And now it can be also the very dangerous situation of this transit time, that in 2020 EU had not have a strategy, and if it repeated with transition time, it will be also the sort of situation that EU will not have a strategy, and that's why we are speaking about it also.
So the message, your message tonight is for Europe to design a strategy for Belarus.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Maria, and please a big applause for Maria Kalesnikava.